You have a motion?
I do. If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
I don't need argument, I just need a motion.
Motion to strike for cause.
I'm going to grant that motion. I think both sides have had plenty of opportunity to rake this juror over the coals. I am incorporating findings from the questionnaire as well. Everyone in this courtroom is a very talented lawyer and can probably lead a juror down a path one way or the other, and that's both sides, to their desired result. My job is to figure out whether or not the person can truly be fair and impartial. I think actually this is, in fact, I'm wondering if Mr. Nelson, I'm not going to ask you to respond, if you made the earlier record and motion seeing that this individual is coming up, because I think it is the classic case of someone who, in all sincerity, is saying he would try and be fair and impartial. But every entry in his questionnaire that's related to the presumption of innocence and being fair and impartial is a qualified answer. Specifically, the question which over defense objected, I bolded in the questionnaire, no matter what you have heard or seen about this case and no matter what opinions you might have formed, can you put all that aside and decide this case only on the evidence you receive in court, follow the law, and decide the case in a fair and impartial manner? Yes, but there is no unseeing the video footage of the incident. I am not sure how watching it in a courtroom setting versus in my home would change my feelings about what I am watching with my own eyes. Further on, and the state, I accept your argument that there are two issues here. One is what happened, and then what is the interpretation of it. The problem is when we get to that second issue, there is further equivocation. Specifically, it was a discussion of intent. I've lost my place on it. In response to question 6, had talked to family and friends. His response was, my only real feeling is I think it's unacceptable for one man to choke out another man and continue to do so once he is laying motionless, unconscious on the ground. So he actually did give an opinion that went beyond just what he saw, but what his opinion and evaluation of what that was. But my biggest concern here is that all the answers on the presumption of innocence and fair and impartial, they're all qualified, and this, I think, is a classic case that Mr. Nelson's talking about. He gives what is ultimately the socially desirable answer, but it's always qualified by, I'll try. Finally, if you can put the words in his mouth as, or I shouldn't say that, but if you can lead him to the point of saying the magic words, it's not enough in my view. I make a finding that he could not be fair and impartial, and thus I'm granting the challenge for cause. Let's go to juror number 73.
Your Honor,
Mr. Slisher, you wish to make a record?
just very briefly, Your Honor.
Yes.
Well, obviously, I disagree with the ultimate decision.
Sure.
This is clearly within your discretion, and I understand how you got there. I, just on behalf of the state, deeply appreciate you allowing me to further question the juror and be careful here because it is so important. And
I have no problem with the state seeking to rehabilitate. So don't feel cautious in asking for that. And I'll be real honest. I think I reached this point when I turned to him and said, can I translate as yes, but to not really? And he almost kind of agreed with it. But I think that was the turning point for me. But the state always has a right to rehabilitate. Do not feel shy about asking for it.
I appreciate that.
All right. Juror number 73, please.
Do we need to excuse him?
They will. Mr. Schaefer will take care of it. Good afternoon, sir. If you could come on up. Have a seat.
Thank you.
First thing I'm going to do is swear you in because all your answers have to be under oath. So if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully answer all questions about your qualifications to serve as a juror?
I do.
All right, thank you. A couple things. We have plexiglass in front of you, plexiglass between us. The lawyers have an extra layer of plexiglass between them. My point being that with all those precautions, you can actually take off your mask if it would be more comfortable.
Perfect.
Okay, there we go. A couple of things I want to ask you before I turn it over to the attorneys. First of all, you filled out a questionnaire. Thank you for doing that. Is there anything, or first of all, is everything true in that questionnaire?
Yes.
All right. Now, is there anything you wanted to add or subtract from that questionnaire?
I don't think so. It's been
Okay.
a while.
Yeah, and it's been a few months, and we realize that in the months that have intervened, sometimes maybe in reflection you think, oh, I should have added this, or
Right.
or maybe even an opinion has evolved. So
Yeah.
if there is anything like that, it usually comes up when the lawyers are asking you specific questions, and they will usually read your answers because to refresh your memory, not to be disrespectful or question the legitimacy of anything you said, but just to refresh your memory. But right now, there's nothing particular you can think of to add or subtract.
Nope.
Okay. The questionnaire did advise you not to read any articles, to avoid media, but in the months that have followed filling out the questionnaire until today, which is a fairly long time, it's normal sometimes that people are inadvertently exposed
Yeah.
to more information about the case, a headline, a blurb on the TV news, maybe a friend says, hey, did you hear about what's going on?
Right.
And we told you, don't tell anybody you're a potential juror, so you can't really stop people.
Correct.
Did you learn any new information between the questionnaire and today about the case, or cases that are related to this one, or the lawyers, parties, anything at all?
No, not that I can think of.
All right. Did you hear anything, for example, about any pending civil litigation? That might be-
Yeah, I heard about the judgment for $27 million.
The settlement that occurred?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not part of this case. It's
Right.
involves different parties, different law. But the fact that it was the Floyd family in the city of Minneapolis, how do you think that's going to affect or tilt you, if at all, one way or the other in this case?
I don't think it'll affect me at all. I was thinking about that after it came up. I thought it was kind of odd that it was the timing of it all, I guess.
Okay. In what way was it? Did you think it was odd?
I don't know. I thought in the past that it always had been maybe after.
Mm-hmm. So it was odd before a criminal trial?
Correct.
Do you take anything of it? Do you infer things from hearing about that?
No, I don't. It doesn't affect me at all.
Okay. Any other items that come up in your mind? Maybe some pretrial matters in this case, or anything like that?
Nope.
Okay. The whole point here is whatever you've heard outside the courtroom, you get, and whatever opinions you may have formed, and just about everybody in this case knows something about what went on. Some accurate, some not so accurate. You have to put aside that knowledge and any opinions you may have formed, and just decide this case on the evidence in the courtroom and the law as I give it to you. Do you think you could do that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you recognize anybody who is on the witness list?
I did not.
All right. Now, like the trial, there were some concerns in your questionnaire, I think, about the length being 4 weeks long.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, I'm self-employed, so it'd be a financial strain on my family for me to take that much time off.
Okay.
I
Having said that, everyone bears a certain burden doing jury
Yep,
duty,
I understand. We'll figure it out.
but at the same time, we have to be sensitive to people's individual situations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it would be such that, well, for one thing, would you try and be working after hours, after court time, or anything like that?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Do you think it would be the point where you would be worn out and falling asleep during the trial?
No, I have a business partner and an assistant that can help out.
Okay. Do you think it's a large enough hardship that you would want to be off, not want to be, but should be off the jury?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, and that's a tough call. I would think it would be financially difficult.
Your kids in their teenage years?
No, I have all adult children.
All adult children. Boys or girls?
A boy and 2 girls.
Okay. And I know it's in here, but without going back and,
Right.
just it's easier to ask sometimes. So you received a packet of information, and when you received this packet of information, I'm assuming you learned that you were a prospective juror in this particular case,
Correct.
right? And obviously you had heard about the case before you received this, right?
Correct.
So when you learned that you were a prospective juror in this case, what was your initial reaction?
That I didn't really want to be involved.
Okay, and that's a fair and honest answer, and I appreciate that. Were you concerned about like physical safety? Was it COVID-19 stuff, or was it more just I don't want to have anything to do with this because it's too high profile?
No, it has nothing to do with safety or COVID or anything like that. It's more what we were discussing a few minutes ago about the financial part, because I knew it would be a long trial and how I would work through that.
Sure. And maybe we can just skip some of my other general questions for a second, and let's talk about that, because maybe it's a short order type of a situation. Okay?
Got it.
So obviously we recognize that jury service is an inconvenience for all involved. And the question ultimately becomes, is it just an undue burden or hardship to you, right? Like, if you were to be selected as a juror on this case, would you be able to continue paying your mortgage or your bills?
Yes.
Okay. And do you think it would damage your business in a tremendous way? Because I know you said you're self-employed.
Yes. Possibly. It's my busy time of year right now.
Okay.
So it'll definitely affect me.
Right. And again, without saying the name of your company, because we are trying to protect your identity, you're in real estate, I believe?
Correct.
Real estate sales, home sales, and things of that nature?
Correct.
Coming into the spring, I think spring historically is a pretty big time of year for
Yes.
home sales. Obviously, the market is pretty red hot right now.
Yep.
So, is it simply, I don't mean to be glib about it, right? But is it the difference between I'm going to make some money or a whole lot of money, or is it I'm just going to make some money or no money?
Probably the first part.
Okay. So it would be an inconvenience, but not necessarily an undue burden. Is that fair?
Correct. Yes, that would work.
I'm going to go back to with all due respect, I don't think you'll qualify as an undue hardship. So your concern was really just financial and business related. How did you feel when you came down to the government center this morning, or this afternoon, I should say, and kind of saw the fortifications and the environment around downtown right now?
Yeah, it was quite the scene, I guess. It's kind of what I expected.
Okay. You had heard something about these preparations, I assume?
Correct.
Okay. Did it cause you any concern?
No.
Did it make you feel safer?
Actually did, yes.
Okay. And then when this afternoon, when we had that initial set of instructions, did you, and the judge was saying that we're doing everything we can to protect your anonymity, how did that make you feel?
Fine.
Okay.
I'm fine.
At some point, however, you understand your name may be released publicly. Does that
Correct.
give you any pause or concern?
No.
Okay. Let me ask you, generally speaking, in your personal or professional life, I suppose with 3 grown children, at some point in your life, you have been called to resolve a conflict between 2 people.
Right.
Okay. Can you think when you've been confronted with that, can you think of how you approach that? What tools do you use to approach a conflict between 2 people, and how do you try to resolve it?
Not exactly sure what you're asking. I guess just try and mediate.
Okay, so let's just, I'll put it in a more specific example and less abstract. Let's assume one of your children came to you and said, Dad, this is what happened, and another one came and said, no, this is what happened. Right? There's a conflict inherent between those two stories. Agreed?
Okay.
How do you go through, what's the process you go through to determine which side is A, being truthful, and how do you resolve the conflict between your kids?
Right. I guess you just listen to both sides and talk to each one of them and go from there, I guess.
Okay. If you were a juror in this potential case, or you become a juror in this case, the ultimate goal of the juror is to resolve conflict. Agreed?
Agreed.
And there's obviously a very big conflict between the state of Minnesota and Mr. Chauvin, and there's a potential for conflict in the jury room amongst the potential jurors, right?
Yeah, right.
So, taking the hypothetical situation into the jury room, right? One group of jurors has a perspective that about a piece of evidence, and a different group of jurors, they don't agree.
Right.
You're kind of in the middle. Let's put you in the middle at this point. How do you reconcile, or what tools would you bring to the table to reconcile that type of a dispute?
I don't know. I guess that's what I just said. Just listen to both sides and kind of see what side I fall on and go with that.
Okay. And so do you think it's like a situation where perhaps there may be other information that would assist in the analysis of whatever that is?
Right.
Or what other people might have to say about that same perspective?
Yeah, that's correct.
I don't want to put words in your
No,
mouth.
it sounds like a reasonable
Okay.
way.
And I guess the question is are you the type of person that's just going to agree with one side to build consensus and get this over with and be done? Or if you have a personal feeling that's strong, are you going to dig your heels in and stand your ground?
No, I'm pretty good at standing my ground if I feel a certain way.
Okay. And do you think you could do that if, let's assume there's this one piece of information. This is the critical key as you see it. And the 11 other people are telling you you're wrong. Do you think you could withstand that type of pressure?
I think I could.
Are you at the same time willing to re-examine your beliefs or your views about that piece of information?
Yeah, definitely.
Can you think of a situation in your life where you've been 100% certain that you are right, only to later learn you're wrong?
I would have to think about that, but not right off the top of my head.
Okay. Can you imagine? I liked the example one person gave of being 100% convinced that an athlete has a particular statistic. You look it up, and it turns out you're wrong.
Right.
And that's a very basic kind of an analogy, right? Is anything like that you think ever happened to you in your life? Or can you picture something like that happening?
I can't think of anything right now.
Okay. Well, let's assume that you were 100% convinced of something, and then someone presents you with this evidence that you're wrong. Are you the type of person that goes, oh, well, big deal? Or are you the type of person that looks at it and goes, well, I need to apply this in some other situation?
Yeah, I mean, if I find out I'm absolutely wrong, then yes, I could deal with it.
Okay. Your job as a potential juror in this case is to be the judge of the facts. What happens? What happened? And ultimately, at the end of the case, you will be asked, or you'll be provided with the law that the judge says is the law in this case. Can you apply the law even if you disagree with it or think that the law should change?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to follow up with some questions about your answers. The questioner asks you about what you knew about the case before you filled it out, right?
Correct.
And you wrote, I've seen a couple of videos from different angles with Chauvin's knee on Floyd. I've heard one of the officers was recently new to the force, don't recall which one. And that's what you wrote. So I guess the question I have is, in terms of the videos in this case, you have seen some various videos about what happened in this incident?
Right. I have not seen a full video. I've seen pieces of various ones.
Okay. So that's what I want to make sure we're talking about the same videos and which videos we're talking about. So you understand that a bystander took a video. That video ultimately went viral on social media and became a news story.
Right.
Have you seen that video?
Yes.
And when you say you've seen that video, did you go onto the internet and download the whole video, or are you talking about clips you've seen in various news
I've
sources?
seen clips. I have not seen the full video.
Now, I am aware that some other videos have gone into the public sphere, and there were like body-worn cameras from officers. There were some security or store surveillance videos. Have you seen clips or the entirety of any of those videos?
I don't recall seeing any of those.
Okay. So I guess the question is different angles. Were there other, I guess, bystander videos that you saw?
No, I can only think of one, and that's probably the main one that gets shown or has been shown all the time.
Okay. And you indicated that you had seen, based on your best estimate, some or all of that video, well, parts of that video, I guess we should clarify, 4 to 5 times?
Right.
Okay. And maybe some still images that were taken from that video?
Correct.
Okay. You were asked about your general impression of Mr. Chauvin and Mr. Floyd, and with respect to both, you had a somewhat negative, I guess, general impression of both Mr. Floyd and Mr. Chauvin, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And I just have to follow up. With respect to Mr. Chauvin, you wrote, I've only heard about Chauvin's reputation. What have you heard about his reputation?
I'm trying to recall here. I don't know, that he was kind of a hard ass.
Okay. All right. That maybe there was a reputation of some past incidents.
I think I already worked at a bar.
Okay. And then with respect to Mr. Floyd, you wrote, I've heard some things about his past. What did you heard about Mr. Floyd's past?
Just drug use.
Okay. Now, you understand if you were to be selected as a juror in this case, you would have to judge this case based on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom. Do you understand that?
Yep.
Okay. And you may have heard some things about Mr. Chauvin's past or Mr. Floyd's past, and that information may or may not come into this trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
So could you, if you were a juror in this case, the question ultimately becomes, anything you've heard before, can you set that aside and kind of start from zero, right? And judge this case impartially, fairly, on the evidence as it's presented in court?
I definitely can.
You were asked a question about whether you have talked about Mr. Floyd's death with friends, family, coworkers, etc. And you checked that you had, and you wrote, the media seems to try influencing viewers one way or the other. So your perception, correct me if I'm wrong, as I understand this, is that regardless of which position you may take, the media is going to try to bias you one way or another? Is that?
That's the way I feel, yeah. I'm not big on the news.
Okay. So, and you don't watch much news?
No, just weather and sports is about all I tune into.
Okay, fair enough. You were asked a question, do you believe your community has been negatively or positively affected by any of the protests that have taken place in the Twin Cities area since George Floyd's death? And you wrote negatively. Can you explain that?
Well, I guess my community where I live and hang out in probably hasn't, but the Minneapolis community, I'm sure.
Okay. So would you agree there's a difference between protests and riots?
Yes.
Okay. Well, how would you describe the difference between the two?
I don't know. It seems pretty self-explanatory, I guess.
Okay.
I'm not big into protests either. I've never participated in one. I never plan on one. I just think riots. I don't get that either. When people destroy their own city.
Okay.
Maybe you could pull up just a little bit.
All right.
So I think what you're saying is that the rioting was negative for the city of Minneapolis, but the protests you just don't really care about?
Exactly right.
Okay. You indicated that you have a couple of friends or clients that are police officers in various cities. Are any of them Minneapolis police officers?
No.
Okay. If you were a juror on this case, the subject of police training may become an issue in terms of the use of force, right? We're going to call up your friends or your clients and say, hey, is this how you guys are trained in
Right.
X city?
No.
Okay. All right. There's a question, and I just want to remind you, you have the right to request a private hearing, but there's a question about being a victim of a crime or being arrested for a crime. Are you comfortable answering those questions here
I am without audio.
without audio? Okay.
Right. I think I know which questions, because you did mark one specifically to be answered privately. And so I am going to find under the rule that this would involve particularly sensitive material, so I'm going to order the audio to be not broadcast, and so that'll be turned off. Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. All right. On the questionnaire, sir, there were a series of questions where you were asked to rank your opinion, so to speak. There were these statements, and you had to rank your opinion from a 1 being strongly agree to a 5 being strongly disagree.
Okay.
And I just want to follow up on a couple of those statements. One of the questions you were asked was, blacks and other minorities do not receive equal treatment as whites in the criminal justice system, and you somewhat agreed with that. Can you answer why you somewhat agreed with that statement?
Well, again, it's just something I've seen
Okay.
on the media.
Okay. Do you have
I'm just going off that, and again, I don't watch that much.
Okay. I mean, do you have any personal experience that would lead you to that conclusion?
No, I don't.
Or any friends who have said, hey, you're not going to believe what happened to me?
Right, no.
You were asked, or the statement reads, police in my community make me feel safe, and you somewhat agreed with that. Do you have concerns about policing or that they're overly aggressive, anything of that nature?
No, I really don't have an opinion on that, I guess. I just,
You don't disagree with it? but
Right.
you- Okay.
I guess I wouldn't know.
Okay. I mean, police in your neighborhood, they patrol your neighborhood, they take care of the neighborhood, and you don't know if they'd make you feel safe or not?
I kind of live, it's hard, I don't really want to say, but not in a neighborhood.
Okay, gotcha. And you were asked the statement reads, I do not trust the police, and you somewhat disagreed. Is that kind of the same analysis?
Yes.
You were asked the question, I support defunding the Minneapolis Police Department, and I think that's where you only strongly disagreed with that, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. You were asked a couple of questions about both Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter. You checked neutral. You have a neutral opinion of both statements, and there was no answer. I mean, do you have any particular perspectives to share?
Yeah, I really don't have any opinion on either of them. I don't
Okay.
pay that much attention.
And so, sir, just again, just want to make sure that because you did check, the question was asked, do you want to serve as a juror in this case? You checked not sure. And you said, why do you feel that way about serving as a juror? And you said the length of time. Right? It would be fair to say, I think we've already covered, you can make it work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, begrudgingly, I understand.
Right.
Okay. If I may have a few moments here. We'll pass for cause, Your Honor.
Mr. Slusher.
Thank you, Your Honor. Juror number 73. I wanted to follow up on some of the questions that you responded to regarding your employment, your self-employment, busy time of year,
Yep.
and the real estate market is pretty good right now.
Yes.
Okay. So if this does end up, if this trial ends up taking a little longer, and if would you be surprised if I told you that attorneys are terrible at estimating how long things take?
Right.
Right. I think that to be fair to both sides, we just need to be assured that if we're in a situation where the trial starts grinding on and maybe it's a little bit longer than you'd hoped, that you would be able to give your full 100% attention to the witnesses who are testifying and the evidence being presented. Would you be able to do that?
Definitely.
Okay. And then when the trial is over, when the government rests and there's deliberations, those might take longer than you would hope as well. And to be fair to both sides, it's very important that you'd be able to commit that you wouldn't be thinking about the business you're missing. You'd be thinking about what you need to do to reach a verdict in the case.
Right. Yes.
And did you say definitely?
Definitely, yes.
Okay. Thank you. You indicated that your somewhat negative impression of the defendant, of Mr. Chauvin, was based on his reputation.
Reputation, from what I've heard, correct.
And what specifically have you heard? I heard you use the term hard ass, but have you heard anything more specific than that?
No, I really have. Just he worked at a bar and he had an issue with Mr. Floyd, I've heard. I don't know.
When you say he had an issue with Mr. Floyd, do you mean at the bar?
I think so. I don't know.
Okay. And I'm curious as to the source of your information. Was it media? Was it someone who purported to have firsthand knowledge?
No, I'm sure it was media.
And probably just more directly, you've indicated that you have some friends who are law enforcement officers.
Correct.
Was it any of your friends who shared their opinion of Mr. Chauvin's reputation with you?
No.
So it would have been purely a media.
Right.
Okay. How many different law enforcement officer friends, and I want to divide the friends versus clients, because you've mentioned both. I'm assuming you have a lot of clients.
Right. One is probably one of my best friends, and the other two were clients. Basically, just stay in touch with once in a while.
So let's talk about the clients first. You said they were clients.
Past clients, correct.
Okay.
That I'm still in contact with. I stay in touch with my people.
Sure. But of course, changing houses isn't like changing cars. There's not nearly as much turnover.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, just in terms of your current, financial relationship or business relationship with these individuals,
they're past clients. You don't have a pending sale with a law enforcement officer.
No,
Okay.
not at this time.
Okay. So let's talk about the other officer. You say you have one law enforcement officer who's one of your best friends.
Correct.
And you said that this person does not work in the city of Minneapolis, or for the city of Minneapolis.
Correct.
Is it a large department or a small department?
I would say it's large.
In the 7-county metro area?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been friends with this person?
I first met him as a client about 20 some years ago, and then we just became friends.
Okay. Approximately how often do you see or talk to this person?
I talk to him probably once a week.
Once a week. Do you go over to his house
No, it's usually phone.
by phone?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you and your friend talked about this case at all?
No.
Your friend has never shared with you any opinion that he or she has about this case? Is it a he
No.
or she?
It's a he.
It's a
no.
he. Okay. What about sort of law enforcement in general? Has your friend talked to you about just policing, what that's like?
No, I haven't in years, but I've gone on ride-alongs with him.
You have. About how many times?
At least twice.
Day shift, night shift?
At that time, it was night shift.
What did you think of that experience?
It was interesting. I saw some things.
Yeah? What did you see?
I saw a guy had fallen off his deck and split his head open. Saw that. Saw DUI arrests. Saw someone that had passed.
Sounds like you saw a lot in just a night.
It's a bigger city.
Yeah. What do you think of that as a career path? The job your friend has.
Yeah. It's not for me. Stressful, I'm guessing.
Okay. Can be dangerous.
Dangerous, definitely.
Your friend then, during the course of their shift, they have to exercise judgment, right? And exercise discretion. What are your views on, kind of questioning the discretion that an officer exercises in the field?
Well, from what I've experienced with them 2 times or 3 times whenever I was out, I didn't see anything. Nothing caught me off guard, like, wow, can't believe they're doing that or whatnot.
But what I'm asking you is, in terms of other people questioning an officer's discretion, they have to make decisions, right?
Right.
And sometimes they make decisions, and it could look bad to someone. What do you think about someone who maybe doesn't have the same level of training as a law enforcement officer exercising judgment over the decisions they make?
Right, I get it. They probably don't understand the way things are done and the way they're trained, that kind of stuff.
Do you think that's fair? That someone would?
No, I don't think it's fair.
Has your friend ever expressed to you any concern about kind of the public opinion of police officers in the last year or so? How that's?
A little bit, yeah.
Tell me about
Just
that.
the way things are going these days. I don't really have any conversations that I can recall. I just remember him saying it's a little different out there than when he first started.
How so?
Just the way things are handled with the media, and everybody has a phone with cameras on it now, and so I just think things are more noticeable these days.
Maybe, literally more under the lens.
Right.
People can take out a phone and record you.
Yep.
And was that a positive or negative reaction that he was expressing to?
I don't think it was either. I think he was just expressing that things are have evolved, I guess, over the years, and they have to be more careful on how they act and say and that kind of stuff.
Time is not presenting. Can we sidebar just a schedule?
Yes, Your Honor.
Schedule question.
The law enforcement officer about how attitudes have changed, things are a little bit different now in policing, and they have to be generally more careful. Is that right?
Right.
You're talking about that in the context of cell phone cameras. What about body-worn cameras? Does the department that you're friends with use body-worn cameras?
Yeah, I was saying they have more tools as well besides the general public.
Did your friend express any opinion, positive or negative, about using body-worn cameras?
No, I don't. We never talk about that.
So I want you to imagine a situation in which you were selected as a juror on this case, and you had to listen to testimony of law enforcement officers and also of bystanders. And these people that have been seeing the same thing, same events. Do you believe that you would credit the testimony of a law enforcement officer a little bit more than, say, a bystander?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough question. I guess I would have to see what the. I don't know. I guess I don't know.
And that's kind of hard to think about that in the abstract, but just imagine you're hearing testimony. One person wears the uniform and has the training, and the other person is just simply a bystander on the street. Just knowing yourself as you do, what do you think?
Yeah, well, naturally, I probably believe the police officer more.
And why do you think that is?
Probably because they have more experience and they're trained to deal with whatever's going on rather than the person walking down the street and all of a sudden seeing something happen.
Fair enough. Do you think that, part of your opinion that you might believe a law enforcement officer over that of a bystander could be informed by the relationship you have with your friend?
Maybe. I don't know.
And perhaps some of the experiences that you've had, doing the ride-alongs.
Right. Yeah, possibly.
I'd also like you to just imagine if you're selected as a juror and rendering a verdict of guilty. And then going back and having conversations with your friend. Do you feel that you'd need to maybe explain yourself to your friend?
No, I don't think so.
Well, why not?
Well, I mean, we've known each other 20 years or whatever it's been. I don't think he's going to have a say. I don't think it'd be an issue.
And regardless of whether your friend would, have a say or be an issue, I also want you to just really think about, in the deliberation process, would you yourself think to what am I going to say to my friend? How would I explain to my friend that I returned a verdict of guilty in this particular case?
I would just say that, he wasn't there. He didn't see the evidence. He didn't see the people talking.
And that's how you'd explain it to your friend. I guess I'm wondering if would that be on your mind as you're listening to the evidence, as you're deliberating with other jurors, would in the back of your mind you be thinking about your friend?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, probably. I don't think I would be thinking about that.
You'd be able to put him out of your mind and judge the case based on the facts and the evidence?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
One moment, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. And sir, if just in your own words, getting back to the financial issues, just in your own words, can you tell us what impact serving on a jury in this case, if the case went, say, 4 to 5 weeks,
Right.
what would the impact be
On,
you financially?
it would be, I don't want to say devastating, but it would hurt.
Okay. And do you think that you would have to, like, so for example, go into savings to pay bills?
No. I mean, I'm just, in real estate, it's down the road stuff, so I'd be missing a lot of stuff, so it'd be down the road, I wouldn't be getting.
I see. So participating as a juror now, that might cause you a financial hardship
Later.
later.
Later this year.
Can you give us any sort of idea as to the true impact of that? It's not so much that you then would be concerned about the financial impact at the time, but what I want to know is if you can just estimate for us what type of financial impact that you believe it would have for you.
You want to know an amount about it, or what do you?
Not in so much of an amount, it's more
Right.
like, are you going to be able to pay your mortgage, pay your bills, support
I'll be
your family?
fine.
Okay. All right. Right. Your Honor, need to make a record?
Sure.
Just a few follow-up questions on your the relationship with your friend who's a police officer and the testimony of police officers. What we heard you say is that if there are two people who are observing the same situation, one of them is a police officer and one of them is a civilian, would you treat those two people equally in terms of whether they should be determined to be credible, or would you automatically assume that the police officer is telling the truth simply by virtue of the fact he's wearing a badge?
Right. I would try to treat them as equal. It depends on who the other person was, and I guess what the circumstances they're talking about are.
Right.
But yeah, I think you tend to trust an officer more than just somebody in the general public.
Right. So let's assume again that one is a police officer and one is a reputable, law-abiding, normal citizen, right? And they're both looking at the same situation. Can you assess the credibility of both at the same level?
I think I would hope I could, yes.
Okay. And would you agree that circumstances may dictate, if it's a question of, say, a use of force or some other aspect that's particular to policing, you may credit a police officer more than a civilian?
Correct.
Okay. But all things being equal, if we're talking about is the sky blue, and one person says it's blue and another says it's green, would you simply believe the police officer because he's a police officer?
No.
Okay. Are you able to look at all of the other evidence, analyze it, a police officer's testimony in the same light as any other civilian?
I am.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Slusher, did you want to ask anything further? Okay. Okay, let me just ask one question, sir. Credibility. Let's talk first about whether someone is more likely to tell the truth or not. Do you think that police officers are more likely to tell the truth than a civilian? If that's all you know?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I guess more likely the police officer.
Okay.
I guess it just depends on the situation.
All right. But do you think that police officers are inherently more honest, for example? More likely to tell the truth than not lie?
I believe so.
Okay. I'm going to grant the state's motion under Logan. Sir, you are excused from this jury panel, and so we won't dig into your business for this month.
All right. Thank you.
So thank you for your service and your answers to the
Thank
questions.
you.
Anything else to make a record of after this jury is done? Other topics?
Not on the record, Your Honor.
Okay.
If we have just a brief chambers meeting or today to talk about some other unrelated matters.
Sure. Let's kind of quickly go over. Mr. Schaefer has sent, I think, the jurors, but we're going to bring in 5 and 4, including the one from today, so we don't have to worry about waiting for everybody to go through the orientation video. That person has already, so we can start right at 9:30. 8:45, we'll do the Zoom hearing with the first 7 jurors who are seated to talk about their exposure to the settlement agreement. And Thursday, I plan on ruling on the May 6th, 2019 incident. Probably won't be a written order by then, but I think will be eventually incorporated into a written order as far as the court's analysis. That's kind of where we're at. So tomorrow 8:45, and I think Thursday at 8:45. All right. Anything else for the record before we have a chambers conference?
Not for the record, thank you.
Mr. Nelson, anything for the defense?
Okay.
All right. 8:45 tomorrow. Thank you all. We're in recess.